Marc Morano is not picking up. He's a great guy, awesome guy, very busy on Earth Day. We may have gotten some time zones mixed up. We just got him, I'm told. That is awesome. Well, that was perfect timing. You know, I don't want to just sit up here and ask the questions and rattle on and interrupt and you know, kind of let this interview just blow over in the next 25 minutes to the next subject. What Marc Morano is doing with Lord Monckton and others is attacking at the root, the absolute fount, the fountainhead, the birthplace, the engine, the progenitor of all our problems. If you understand the environmentalist, the eugenicist, the Earth Day cultist, when you understand them, you understand everything. They want to control the resources. They want to say who can have a car. They want to say where you can go, what you can do. They want to monitor everything with carbon taxes that they themselves profit from. They want to tell you by 2013, sea levels are going to rise and the ice caps are going to be gone, but they only get bigger. They want to have a UN vote that the sun doesn't affect climate. And now, as Marc Morano and countless others have warned, he's been the tip of the spear, I've got a stack of news articles here today in the Washington Post, Washington Times, you name it, where with straight face, Bill Nye tells Marc Morano, yeah, we need to look at arresting people for their speech. That's right. Democratic AGs, climate change groups colluded on prosecuting dissenters, email shows. Prosecuting people who say climate change is completely normal, the only constant, and humans barely contribute. And what does paying Al Gore billions in carbon taxes and Lord Rothschild do? Global warming has made the weather better for most in the U.S., but don't get used to it. Study says all this garbage. Ladies and gentlemen, the man that heads up climatedepot.com, Marc Morano, joins us. The guy that's been going to all these big UN conferences where a global government is going to regulate and control everything you do and selectively shut down power plants and industries they don't control. China doesn't have to make any cuts. India doesn't make cuts. That alone should kill all this. Their answer is to lie with a bald face and say not one scientist disagrees with us, and we're going to put you in prison if you disagree, when almost all the scientists say it's pure bull. It's incredible. Marc Morano, it's Earth Day. So much is going on. They have gotten really bold. Is it because they're desperate that their lies are imploding? I mean, we've got their internal emails where they're hiding the decline all over the world, you know, organizing this. Is it desperation or is it out of arrogance? Because they're all over the news saying just arrest anybody they disagree with. In fact, they name you as someone they want to indict. Marc Morano, former top advisor to Senator Inhofe, advisor to Congress. How dare you, sir? How dare you not want to tax Western civilization?
Well, thanks for having me on, Alex. Yeah, when I was in Paris, we talked about this. You interviewed me live from Paris. They had my wanted posters all over the UN Climate Summit in Paris with my mugshot and a wanted sign for being a, quote, climate criminal, unquote. And that's followed by Senator Whitehouse of Rhode Island calling for organized crime racketeering charges against climate skeptics. It's calling after Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has called to jail climate skeptics for treason and put them at The Hague with all the other war criminals, in his words, with 3 square meals in a cot with all the other war criminals. And now, as you mentioned, Bill Nye is joining it. You're asking me if it's arrogance or if it's desperation. Here's the problem. I don't think they're that desperate, and here's why. They have many important ways are winning below the radar. And here's what I mean by that. In the 1990s, the biggest atrocity performed was a Republican president when it comes to U.S. sovereignty, and it was by George H.W. Bush. He attended the Real Earth Summit. His then advisor was an alleged conservative named John Sununu, who urged everyone, oh, we're going to do this treaty, but it won't be binding, and don't worry, don't worry. We signed on to that treaty, and the Senate ratified the 1992 Rio Earth Treaty. And that was the basis for everything we see today. That is the reason President Obama is now claiming he doesn't have to ratify this treaty. We're living with a Republican president's legacy now, almost 25 years later, that has put the United States...
This is Agenda 21. It starts with our toilets and our light bulbs and our cars, and now just everything under regulations that just come out of nowhere.
and so what they've done is, with President Bush signing on, that led to the Kyoto Protocol, the next UN treaty, that led to a whole series of domestic attempts. But they failed on cap and trade like 5 times: 2003, 2005, 2008, 2009, 2010. They just kept failing. Every time they tried to pass a climate bill, Capitol Hill would be shut down. Democratic congressmen who voted for the bill would go home. They'd be mocked and ridiculed. They'd say they won't vote again. The public couldn't have been more loud in saying they didn't want these. They never got carbon taxes. The UN treaties were never ratified. But what President Obama did, and it's transformational. He's surpassed LBJ. He's now rivaling only Franklin Delano Roosevelt in transforming America, is in terms of expanding big government. Roosevelt had his New Deal and Supreme Court packing.
But
Obama
Mark, isn't the real racketeering people like Pacharia, whose son literally had the coal plant transferred from England, the last one in that area of Sheffield, to India that he owned and ran? I mean, he had to resign because of it. The real racketeering is them saying, we've got to pay Al Gore and the Chicago Mercantile and Obama, that's part owner, every time we engage in any human activity, and pay them carbon indulgences. And the Pope's running around involved. I mean, this is over the top.
Yeah, it is. And this is all part of the thing. But here's what I'm saying. They're winning in this important respect. We have now domestic climate regulations without a vote of Congress under executive order, and now we have, today, President Obama on Earth Day is signing the U.S. onto this UN Climate Paris Treaty. We are going to have a new international regulation, so we are covered both domestically, internationally, and we have presidential candidates, and whether you like them or hate them, or whatever you think, they're not making this a priority. You don't
That's right. Donald Trump needs to talk about
climate. Ted Cruz talking about it.
Donald Trump needs to come out, obviously, and say, look, we got TPP, secret deal, all these other environmental deals, Paris UN deals to shut off our power plants, but not other countries' power plants. That's wrong. That's even bigger than his tariff deal with the Chinese. I agree. In fact, I'm going to get that message to Paul and to Roger. I'm going to make sure that message gets to them, because it's crazy. I mean, I literally say stuff, hey, you ought to push this. They get it to Trump. He looks at it and talks about it. So the good thing about Trump is he will actually listen.
No, I agree. But here's the thing. They need to actually have here's a specific agenda. They need to defund the United Nations Climate Panel. There's actually been proposals in Congress that haven't gone anywhere. A couple of Republican congressmen have pushed it. They need to withdraw from the UN Climate Treaty, and they need to reverse President Obama. A simple 3-point plan to start with, and that should be every stump speech of every presidential candidate running to oppose this agenda. The problem is the public isn't even aware that all the bills that they've defeated in the past, it doesn't matter. We now have climate bills through the EPA. We now have UN treaty without Senate ratification. And I think the other side is excited. I think they think if they can get Hillary elected, that it's going to be 4 more or 8 more years before you can even revisit this.
Absolutely. So they're running away with it worldwide. They're just installing a dictatorship. Well, then shouldn't we call in Congress for impeachment, just like Obama has open borders, or he's shutting off our coal plants, saying he wants to bankrupt them?
I think that we need to raise this issue as the highest profile. There is no issue. In fact, if you look, actually, John Coleman, who's going to be appearing in the movie theaters he introduces our film, The Climate Hustle, on May 2nd for the showing. His USA Today, he's got an op-ed in there today, and he lays it out bare. This is nothing to do with science, environmental policy, and nothing to do with sea level rise. The UN climate chief has actually said that she seeks a, quote, centralized transformation that will make the life on this planet very different for everyone.
Absolutely.
Now,
a global government taxing all carbon activity. Here's USA Today article. We're going to get John Coleman on sometime next week, founder of the Weather Channel. He's a big listener, big patriot. Get politics out of climate debate. Opposing view. So at least USA Today showed an opposing view. As you know more and more, Mark, on CNN, MSNBC, they're not even showing opposing views anymore.
No, in fact, they won't even publish articles. They won't put letters to the editors on anyone they deem a skeptic. And the reason is, and this is what's wrong, we have now Democratic attorney generals in about 5-7 states. Al Gore joined them a few weeks ago. I was actually interviewing Bill Nye, the science guy, in New York City when this was going on. I made it to the press conference right as it ended. They're now talking about every bad weather event. If a flood happens in New Jersey, they're going to go after energy companies now and try to get huge settlements.
Talk about shakedowns, but it's going to be select insurance, select energy companies, not part of the cabal. Just like GE got all the waivers. They could keep their coal power plants. Nobody else could. Let's play a clip of Bill Nye, folks, that Marc Morano just interviewed last week, saying, no, we should look at going after people. And then he uses Enron, which came up with the carbon scam in the late 80s with Al Gore. The irony could not be sicker. Here it is.
We interviewed Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the environmentalist, here at the People's Climate March in 2014, September. He said that the climate deniers, his word, and energy CEOs belong at The Hague with 3 square meals and a cot with all the other war criminals. What is your thought on that? And do you think some of the rhetoric on your side, as I'm sure both sides, but some of the rhetoric on your side gets too carried away? I mean, what's your thought on jailing skeptics as war criminals?
Well, we'll see what happens. Was it appropriate to jail the guys from Enron?
Interesting.
Okay, right. So we'll see what happens. Was it appropriate to jail people from the cigarette industry who insisted that this addictive product was not addictive and so on? And you think about, in these cases, for me as a taxpayer and voter, the introduction of this extreme doubt, will you go with extreme doubt?
This is them selling, arresting us.
Is affecting my quality of life.
People are evil.
As a public citizen. So I can see where people are very concerned about this and are pursuing criminal investigations as well as engaging in discussions like this.
You know what's scary? He gives the perfect canned push they've had for 5 years, saying they want to arrest people. And now they're trying to do it in Europe. They're trying to do it here. They mean business, folks. These people are so dangerous. Now, here's Obama saying, you can build a coal power plant, but we will bankrupt you. We will raise the tax. Again, they all just moved to Mexico. That's why Ford and everybody's going to Mexico. Because you can't build here because we have some of the most expensive energy in the world, except for Spain, who's going completely bankrupt by design because of the carbon taxes, and Australia. Let's play this clip and get Marc Morano from climatehustle.org's take on it. Here's Obama.
So if somebody wants to build a coal power plant, they can. It's just that it will bankrupt them because they're going to be charged a huge sum for all that greenhouse gas that's being emitted.
So discriminatory. America has the highest regulations and taxes and garbage of anybody basically out there now, of any major country. How is it not discriminatory that we're supposed to shut down, but they're not, Mark?
And that's exactly right. In fact, that's one campaign promise he has kept. And, we had the largest private coal company in the world declare bankruptcy about last week or 10 days ago. And now I believe it was the Sierra Club just yesterday, the day before, has come out, and now they're opposed to all natural gas. This is an insidious agenda that basically says any energy that works, that powers our economy and our nation, has to be banned. And we're now going to mandate energy that's not ready for prime time, solar, wind, and others so-called.
And then that's all special deals with their cronies to get the boondoggles. And the reason I get so upset about this, I study military history. When you blow the energy bases, that's when you're killing the country. And they are literally turning us off. They are literally flipping the lights off, giggling and laughing at us, and admitting it's Cloward and Piven, Marc Morano.
Yeah, in 1975, John Holdren wrote an op-ed, Obama's current science advisor, saying one of the hazards of a free society was energy that's too plentiful. I mean, this is their ideology. And it's this worldview that humans are a parasite. They've actually said that phrase. They've been compared by David Suzuki in Canada, one of the lead environmentalists.
Compared us to maggots.
Maggots. And other people have called them parasites. And this is how they view human development.
You know what? Those maggots need to step off the planet. Oh, but they've got to stay and cull us and manage it. Final segment with Marc Morano straight ahead, climatedepot.com. There's a war, folks. They're blowing our power systems now. Nobody else has to turn off but Europe and the U.S. We're going down. Mayday, mayday. Escape from the prison planet. Clutch bringing us in. Marc Morano is our guest here on Earth Day. This is about the dictatorship of the proletariat. Actually, a bunch of mega banks and select energy companies funding the takeover of all energy, all human activity. There's water, there's sunlight, there's carbon dioxide, there's oxygen. You got to have those 4 things, and if you can tax one of them, you take over all human activity. This is an admitted sickening plan. And even Politico admits, inside the war on coal, because there's so much more of that than oil, the oil companies in many cases are trying to shut coal down. I have 0 coal holdings. Every time I say, let's not shut down all the coal, it's totally clean burning now, the way they have these scrubbers set up. I get emails, calls, how dare you, you work for the coal companies. And quite frankly, my family's got a few oil wells and gas wells. I don't really get any money from it. In fact, I get no money from it. And it's not that much money for my family. But people go, well, then you should really be for natural gas. It competes with coal. I want cheap, good, clean energy for America, and I sure don't want one-sided deals where hundreds of countries can have no controls, but we're being shut down. Folks, you understand that's why we're shutting down. Marc Morano, what else are you watching? What else is happening? I agree, we're winning the hearts and minds of the people, but they're just bureaucratically going ahead, robbing everything, stealing everything.
Yeah, I was saying in many important ways, climate skeptics have won every battle, but we may be losing the war as we speak. And the reason is Obama's cunning to go below the radar through executive order and no ratification for a UN treaty. No executive order with EPA, domestic, and now this treaty. Just make no mistake, when President Obama puts ink to paper today and commits us to this treaty, we are now, by the UN's own words, these treaties are, quote, they redistribute wealth by climate policy. This is the absolute goal of them. And they're actually also openly talking about a CO2 budget for every man, woman, and child on the planet that will be monitored by international bureaucrats. If you use too much energy, fly too much, you're going to owe money. If you're under, you get some kind of credit. This is a new Orwellian world that we're facing. And this is a step, in Al Gore's own words, these treaties and climate bills and regulations are the first step to, quote, global governance, unquote. Wow. Their words. And by the way, Al Gore appears in Climate Hustle, and you go see it on May 2nd. He's talking about we need fertility management in Africa. We have to make fertility management ubiquitous, and then he goes on and complains about how many Africans there are projected to be.
Yeah, that means one-child policy. As Lord Monkton's done the numbers, $1 billion debt if they put in the Copenhagen plan. You were there, helped get the documents. This whole Copenhagen plan, once the third world saw it, and once even the socialists saw it and learned it was a screw job, they said no. Isn't that their biggest problem, just like Obamacare, that when they try to implement it, then people turn against it, Marc Morano?
Well, yes, but here's how they're trying to solve it. They have what I call the climate slush fund. It's $100 billion a year. It's going to be trillions of dollars in the end. And what they're doing is, if you're a corrupt third world dictator, and you wouldn't have anything to do with this normally, suddenly you're looking at massive wealth transfers from other countries. I've talked to South African development activists who say this UN fund, they're buying off the developing world to sign on to these treaties by just cash to governments. And the governments are going to take this cash, enrich themselves, and the UN's going to give it to the governments that are best able to keep their people locked in poverty, the people that are best able to not allow development. We have at the UN conferences people calling for planned recessions to fight global warming. They're calling for degrowth. They're calling it degrowth strategy. Sure. This is the new effort, and they're buying off the third world. So many third world countries, even though the people will resent it, their leaders will be lined up at the trough getting this UN money. Well,
take Obama 2 years ago saying you can't have cars and air conditioning to Africans. I mean, they're telling you, we're here to make you slaves, totally control you. Mark, if you got to go, you got to go. If you can do 5 more minutes, we're back in 70 seconds. I want to spend 5 minutes on the climate hustle, which they want you arrested for, if you can do it. If you can't, I understand.
Yeah, sure, I can do it. No, I'll hang around.
All right, good. Back in 70 seconds. Third hour straight ahead. You know, I want to say we are the planetary defense force for America and for every free human out there. I mean, the globalists really are a bunch of con artists, anti-human eugenicists that by the 1900s learned to basically pose as liberals. So that'd been their traditional enemy. It was like real liberals that were for human empowerment, lower taxes, paleo-conservatives, what they're called today. And I made the film Endgame to expose it. Marc Morano is our guest. He's made a film that I've seen a sneak peek clips of, not the whole thing, but some of their promotional material. I happen to get sent the link to that has been sent to the distributor. Marc Morano probably didn't even know that. And I watched about 30 minutes of it. Very powerful. Premiered over in Paris during their whole World Government Summit a few months ago. And just like I promote Behold a Pale Horse that's being put out, and I promote this, I have no monetary connection to it. I'm just promoting it because we're all being attacked by this. And you need to go see the film. So, Marc Morano, how do the listeners go see the film? What's in the film? You know, we all know about this. Our audience knows, but their neighbors, their friends, their families don't. That's why everybody's got to become an info warrior. Everybody has to become a change agent to counter the communist and globalist change agents. Marc Morano.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, you go to climatehustle.com. And you can look up the local theater. We're going to be in about 400 theaters and growing on May 2nd, one night only. You can buy your tickets online. It includes a panel discussion after the film. And this
Wait a minute. I'm going to give you the floor for the last 3 minutes. You are having an opening on 400 screens. That is bigger than most films. You have engaged in a massive coup, my friend.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a nationwide theatrical release. We have the left irate with us. They are so mad. They're going after the film distributor company, asking all sorts of, they're angry that this is happening. And the key to this, Alex, we're showing that the climate claims in science have become so untenable that politically left scientists are descending. We feature French socialist geophysicist, Dr. Claude Allegre, who actually was worried about global warming 20 years ago, and he's now reversed himself and is a major skeptic in France, one of their leading scientists. We featured Nobel Prize-winning scientists who endorsed President Obama for president in 2008 and is now one of the leading voices of climate skepticism. He was Nobel Prize for physics. We feature scientists from Ivy League universities who voted for Al Gore, think he's a smart man, would vote for Al Gore again, but were appalled when they went and watched the movie. So this movie features liberals bashing climate science. It's not, oh, this is a bunch of libertarian, conservative, scientists and activists.
These are the scientists themselves. I mean, it's a fact. We have their emails. It's all a lie, a power grab.
Yes, and we get into that, too. That's one of the key things. Many of the scientists reversed their view of climate after the ClimateGate scandal of 2009, 2010. And we get into the absurdity of it. We talk about the climate tipping points, how they're decades, years, months. We get down to minutes, seconds.
I mean, they imply that polar bears are dying and can't swim, and the numbers are up fivefold.
Yes, the numbers were probably 5,000 to 10,000 in the 1960s. Were actually in excess, as of last year, for the first time ever, in excess of estimates now of over 30,000 global polar bears. Numbers that have just rebounded spectacularly. And we get into witchcraft. We show how in the Middle Ages people accused witches of changing the weather, crop failure, extreme storms, and now they're literally accusing our SUVs and our energy plants and our HD TVs of causing bad weather. Actually, the word they're using is fossil-fueled poisoned weather. We get into how it claimed global warming causes prostitution, airline turbulence.
Look, it's a total mumbo-jumbo attempted cult takeover.
Yes, and I actually featured the scientist. You get to see him in his own words, a man calling for shrinking humans, genetically altering humans to fight global warming to reduce our carbon footprint.
That's directly out of Brave New World.
Yes, you may have read about this guy, but you've never seen the video before. We feature him in the movie openly talking about shrinking human beings to fight global warming.
I saw that in the Guardian. I didn't know you interviewed him. Marc Morano, congratulations. Come back right before the film comes out. I can't wait to see it. Wow, 400 screens. That means it'll be in Austin. Our listeners everywhere, go to climatehustle.org. Buy your tickets now, and that'll make it be. I mean, folks, opening on 400 screens is bigger than most blockbusters. Marc, you've done an incredible job. I'm so thankful that you're out there, and I sleep better at night. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Alex.